What's up, gamers? I'm Randy Potato with over 2,500 hours in Darkest Dungeon 2, and I got a few quick tips to make you a Blood Moon Master in Kingdoms mode. 1. Defend your inns. Sieges catch up to you quick once you hit Escalation 2. There is no conceivable way to protect them all with your 12 hero roster. Every single inn you touch from day 1 should immediately be upgraded to Partisan Militia, the second tier of peasants, which only costs 20 inn materials. These will almost always defeat Escalation 1 sieges, and can sometimes stand up to Escalation 2 sieges with some good play in RNG, but usually want some hero backup. When you have the inn materials, start putting up a veteran militia for 50 inn materials. These guys can solo any Escalation 2 mash and most of Escalation 3. Use these at your corner and fast travel inns to start, since these ones are harder to backtrack to for later upgrades. And most importantly, don't delay any sieges with your main stagecoach team. Beeline to them as they spawn to avoid an overwhelming surge, regardless of what rewards await elsewhere. 2. Aggressive early, quest later. You're given the spyglass at the very start of your run, allowing you to scout the watchtower that opens up the first part of your main quest. However, it is a mistake to start your quest this early, as Escalation 1 should primarily be about spamming fights to obtain enough loot to get you through the harder parts of the quest. In addition, opening the second part of the quest will spawn guaranteed and scouted hoarders and hospitals in every region, and ideally you want these to pop up as you're heading into the middle part of the run once you have the loot to use them, and when your party is fatigued and could use the hospital fatigue clear mechanic. Obviously don't wait too long, as you want to be prepped to finish the run the moment you hit Escalation 3. 3. Healing is king, stress and HP. Unlike in Confessions mode, inns are no respite here. You will not heal even 1 point of stress or health arriving at any inn outside of certain events. With short regions, you don't get as much travel heal and you're smashing into sieges every couple days. I like packing multiple healers into every party. Plague Doctor is obviously the best because of dot clear, heals, and indiscriminate science, but Runaway with Cauterize, Occultist with Weird Spam, and Vestal with dot clear and regen are all staples to open your run in the back line. Flagellant and Crusader offer frontline healing, though I like to have Hellion in rank 1 for damage. As for items, healing salves and related restoratives are again dominant, and when you open the hospital quest, load up on as many as possible. Stitching Kit is expensive, but one of the best buys in the game for the big heal and fatigue heal. You can also pay to heal at inns at base, and the 3 relic option is pretty clutch to padding you up in conjunction with road healing. For stress, Man-at-Arms is as indispensable as Plague Doctor in my opinion. Bolster is a 4 stress clear which beats everyone, along with his block plus generation, taunt, and self-heal, all of which come in handy against the heavy hitters in this mode. Crusader and Jester are the only other real stress healers on your roster, and with Crusader again being a great pick, but inferior to Hellion in rank 1 because of reach and overall damage, and Jester being a squishy boy with no self-healing, though his horror clear comes in handy. Relics are too precious to spend on stress healing, so stay clear of most of these items. The relationship-focused ones are fine if needed, and focus on good play to preserve your mental state. 4. Preserve your food. Food is a much more precious resource in Kingdoms compared to Confessions. It still only lasts 1 region, even though regions are much shorter. You only get offered 2 per inn before upgrading the Provisioner, and the relic rewards are much tighter. Also, assistant encounters are few and far between because of the shorter regions, and fights are better anyways. In Escalation 1, you get extra HP, and this boost means you should never utilize food here. Keep hoarding. Food-producing stagecoach items are very strong, though the cost is extremely high. Even in Escalation 2, food should not be in auto-use. Save it for expectant sieges. Once in Escalation 3, you'll want full party food every time. Make it a point to hoard as much food as you will need to carry you through the boss, ideally 5 to 7 days if you quest correctly. 5. Ignore the capstones. The in-upgrade capstones are a big draw, offering big rewards, but are rarely ever worth the 40 mat cost. That's almost a full veteran militia upgrade. The militia capstone is just not necessary for defeating even Escalation 3 sieges, especially with the quasi-random item selection. Better to just pair a hero. The scouting and enemy advantage chance reduction is cute, but again, for 40, the Provisioner grants 20 inn mats when arriving at the inn, useless at the point where you can afford this upgrade. The small boost to money is barely noticeable late game. The Wainwright gives scouting and minus flame drain, along with giving enemies negative tokens in road fights, but notably this does not affect the quest fights, again making it quite bad. The Mastery is mediocre, giving Mastery when arriving. Late game you're already fine on Mastery. Resistance scouting, and a strike token in resistance fights, which is nice, but you should be good at these fights already by the time you can afford this. Physician gives a positive quirk, usually meh, but sometimes actively harmful, hospital scouting, and reduced dot by enemies. This might be the most usable one, ideally utilized when fighting the alpha late game to make that fight more manageable, or even the final boss if you can pull it off. Overall, these are late game luxuries that I rarely ever think about. 6. Don't play in Escalation 3. Escalation 3 is dangerous, not just to traverse, but primarily the siege wave, which can threaten even Tier 3 peasants. Ideally, you are finished with the meat quest before Escalation 3 hits, and have your team fatigue free so you can immediately smash the final quest and outrace some of those late sieges. There's almost no real reason not to beat the boss within 5 to 8 days of Escalation 3 hitting, depending on spawn RNG of course. 7. Baubles are for fatigue. Baubles are an even more precious resource than relics are. You start off with a respectable amount, often tempting you towards blowing your load on a single indelible trinket or high-cost stagecoach item. In Escalation 1, I will almost never spend baubles, and anytime I do, I usually regret it. Always keep some in reserve for your stagecoach repairs, obviously, since replenishing them through assisted encounters is pretty rare. Otherwise, my top priority is keeping them for fatigue relief at hospitals or upgraded physician inns. Especially on Blood Moon, you don't have time to take rest days before you clear the Escalation 2 siege wave, and you don't always have time to backtrack and pick up a stationed hero. Number 8, protect your peasants. Having militia is not a guaranteed siege victory. Level 1s are useless. Tier 2 partisans can usually handle Escalation 1, but will usually want a hero for them for support at Escalation 2, and aren't recommended for the Escalation 3 sieges. Vet militia are always good for Escalation 2, and can usually solo Escalation 3, but could use help if available. As far as assistance, I usually run a frontline tank or damage dealer, or utility like Bounty Hunter, since the Arbalists are very strong with the heals. If I give my peasants 2 support, I really like Vestal in that backline role for her giant HP pool, consecrations, and heals. Don't forget that any hero at the end will automatically replace a peasant, so you need to move off unwanted ones. And remember to rearrange your heroes before siege start. This will determine which peasant is replaced. 9. Positioning. As far as roster management and positioning goes, I generally treat my Crossroads team as my primary stagecoach squad. There is a reason I selected them. For fatigue control and general safety, I follow my main squad with 2 heroes, 1 frontline and 1 backline as relief. Though sometimes early I'll add a 3rd follower for matchups, but be careful here because you can only have 4 to location, so if you bunch them up too much it can cause movement problems. Early on, especially on maps like Ridgeline, I like to assemble an entire second party to handle in sieges that have yet to be reinforced with militia. Sometimes this can be awkward with only 12 heroes on a roster and you generally bring 1 to 2 healers in your main party along with a backup healer, but often your siege team doesn't need a healer at all, since you should start every siege at full health and full light benefits. Outside of the siege team, which isn't always necessary depending on the map, the rest of your heroes should be scattered, ready to supplement an in siege. If they're full health, I prefer leaving them at camps, which are generally between inns, so you only need to move 1 square for a siege instead of rushing 2 squares and gaining fatigue. Just remember that you recover more at an inn, so sometimes you need to rest them if they just left your party or are very injured. For sieges, remember you cannot recover at a sieged inn, so leave them off the square until they are back to full health. And finally, don't be afraid to straight up abandon heroes. Sometimes Abomination or Duelist just don't fit what I want to do, so I strand them at a corner camp location so they don't get in the way and end up blocking movement. 10. Watch Randy Potato. The most important tip is to watch Randy Potato, that's me, for more tips and full runs to give you insight into my play that you can't get from short guides. Thank you for watching and enjoy the best game mode Red Hook has ever released.